Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. There's even a brand new Brigadier General tier where you can get a shout out on a Commander's Quarters episode that's dedicated to you. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. Good morning everyone, and welcome to Innistrad Crimson Vow Spoiler Season Week 2 Extravaganza Fun Times. Yeah, okay, that's enough. Regardless, if you haven't seen my other quick takes from this spoiler season from the first 2 days, make sure you check those out at some point. I mean, we've got a lot of new and exciting cards like Krathus, Lord of the Deep. Yeah, a sea monster god, but it's not actually a god, you know, creature type-wise, but it's basically a sea monster god, okay? But before you go and watch those quick takes, make sure you stick around for this one because we've got a brand new staple for zombies. And yeah, I mean, who doesn't love zombies? Except for me when I'm playing against a zombie tribal deck and it's taking me down. Yeah. Regardless, what is Necroduality and what does it do? Well, let's jump into it to find out. So, Necroduality is an enchantment for 3 and a blue, and it says, whenever a non-token zombie enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. So, this is a very simple, but incredibly effective card, and yeah, this, in my opinion, is definitely a staple for zombie tribal decks. I mean, for 4 mana, you are getting an additional zombie every single time you have a non-token zombie enter. And again, that says enter, it doesn't say when you cast one. So basically, you know, if you've got zombies coming into play from, I don't know, your graveyard, you're getting that as well. Essentially now, every single non-token zombie in your deck, you are doubling up whenever they come into play from anywhere. And what zombie decks don't like to make a zombie horde and just, you know, overwhelm the board and take out their opponents? So yeah, now you can grow your zombie horde twice as quickly, so have fun with that. So yeah, and of course we'll go through some examples here in a bit, but keep in mind that this also is going to obviously impact ETBs, which you're going to get twice as many right away, death triggers, which you'll get twice as many when those happen as well. And yeah, there's just a lot of things that this impacts and really helps you progress your game even quicker. So yeah, this card is an absolute bomb for zombie tribal decks. It's just 4 mana to get out, and it's an enchantment, which means it's, well, pretty much the hardest permanent type to deal with in Commander. Or at least I should say, enchantments are typically the most resilient permanent type in Commander. So typically this is going to stay on the battlefield for enough time for you to get a good amount of value out of it. And yeah, a lot of the time that's going to be game-winning value. If you get this down early enough, you can really snowball and take over the game quite quickly. But yeah, when it comes to Necroduality, which is a fantastic name, there are other similar cards to this one, so let's jump into those really quick and then talk about cards that work really well with it. Now, the first card that came to mind when I saw Necroduality was Reflections of Lit Jara. Reflections of Lit Jara is an enchantment for 4 and a blue, and it says, as it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, copy that spell. A copy of a permanent spell becomes a token. And yeah, the second that I saw Necroduality, I had to re-look up Reflections just to make sure that I thought it worked differently, and it does, but I wasn't positive, so I want to make sure I was speaking correctly on this card. Because yeah, again, keep in mind, Necroduality counts when zombies enter. Reflections counts when a spell is cast. And Reflections actually sees a decent amount of play in zombie tribal decks already, and obviously can see play in other, decks outside of zombies, whereas Necroduality is specifically for zombies. But yeah, the Reflections doesn't count when they just enter, it only counts on cast. Which again is a lot weaker in a lot of circumstances because, well, it's not counting when your zombies are coming into play from other places, which obviously, if you're running a zombie tribal deck, you've got plenty of ways for your zombies to, well, come in from your graveyard or elsewhere. Or, okay, should I say mostly your graveyard with cards like Zombie Apocalypse, Living Death, and Whip of Erebos. Zombie Apocalypse says return all zombie creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, then destroy all humans because, you know, Zombie Apocalypse. So yeah, essentially, for every zombie in your graveyard, you're getting all those back, and then again, because of Necroduality, you get a copy of every single zombie. And then Living Death is a non-specific mass reanimation spell, but a very effective one that says each player exiles all creature cards from their graveyard, then sacrifices all creatures they control, then puts all creature cards exiled this way onto the battlefield. Basically, everyone swaps all their creatures on the battlefield with all their creatures in the graveyard. And again, although your opponents might get some things back, you're gonna get a lot of zombies, and even more zombies because you're making copies of them. Or, you know, you can go the slow and steady approach like Whip of Erebos. It says creatures you control have lifelink, which is lovely, and by paying 2 black and tapping it, you return target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. If it would leave the battlefield, exile instead of putting it anywhere else. Activate this ability only anytime you cast a sorcery. So, Whip of Erebos helps you temporarily get back a creature, but again, if that's a zombie with Necroduality, you're also getting a copy of that creature, and that creature token isn't going to be temporary, it's going to stick around. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things that you can do with Necroduality, and a lot of ways that you can take advantage of it being, again, an enter instead of a cast trigger. I mean, some somewhat similar cards to this one that we have seen have been cards like Molten Echoes and Bramble Sovereign, but they go about it in a slightly different way. Molten Echo says when it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever a non-token creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. That token gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. So this gives you access to a temporary token. Again, this one can go in any kind of a tribal deck because you can choose the creature, but again, that token is temporary. It does count when creatures enter, but the token that you're getting doesn't stick around. And then Bramble Sovereign says, whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield, you may pay 1 and a green. If you do, that creature's controller creates a token that's a copy of that creature. So this one also counts creatures entering the battlefield from anywhere, or again, I should say non-token creatures, but in order to make that token, you have to actually pay. So the token does stick around, but obviously you need mana up every single time you want a copy of a creature, and again, Necroduality does not require that. It's just, hey, free extra zombies. And speaking of zombies, let's talk about those zombies that you're really going to want to double up on. First up, let's talk about some zombie lords like Diregraph Captain and Undead Warchief. Diregraph Captain has Death Touch, and other zombie creatures you control get +1/+1, and whenever another zombie you control dies, target opponent loses 1 life. Yeah, getting a second copy of this one can be really brutal. First up, all your other zombies, outside of your Diregraph Captains, are going to be getting +2/+2, though your captains are also going to be getting +1/+1, which is nice. So yeah, a zombie anthem for +2/+2 can be incredible, on top of, whenever another zombie you control dies, target opponent's going to be losing 2 life. Or I guess I should say you could spread those triggers out, obviously, and drain, multiple players for 1 each whenever zombies die. You know what I mean. Regardless, things can get even more out of control with Undead Warchief, which says, zombie spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and zombie creatures you control get +2/+1. So your zombie spells are going to cost 2 less to cast now, which makes your zombie spells cost nearly nothing, because a lot of zombies are pretty low to the ground. And then, yeah, zombie creatures you control are going to get +4/+2. I mean, your typical zombie token is, what, a 2/2, so even if you've got a couple of those in play, those are now 6/4s. So good luck to your opponents when you've got 2 of these out. And of course, like I mentioned before, you can really take advantage of some fantastic ETBs with things like Phyrexian Delver, Noxious Ghoul, and Graph Merchant of Asphodel. Phyrexian Delver has, when it enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You lose life equal to that card's converted mana cost. This one is actually really absurd. Again, in most situations, right, you'd be getting back 1 creature from your graveyard, which is already nice. You'd lose some life, but you reanimate a creature. But with Necroduality in play in a zombie tribal deck, things get pretty out of control. Phyrexian Delver is going to enter the battlefield. Obviously, you're getting a second copy of it, so you get to reanimate 2 things. Let's say that both of those are zombies in your graveyard, which again, in a zombie tribal deck, that's very likely, so you're getting those creatures back. And then since those creatures are entering the battlefield as well, you're getting copies of those creatures. So again, in total, just by getting Phyrexian Delver into play with Necroduality in play, you are getting 6 total creatures on the battlefield. But another fantastic zombie to double up on, though, is Noxious Ghoul. It has, whenever it or another zombie enters the battlefield, all non-zombie creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. So yeah, just to start, we'd get Noxious Ghoul in play and a copy of it in play to really shrink down our opponent's creatures and probably take a lot out. And then from then on, whenever any zombie comes into play, non-zombies are going to get -2/-2. And keep in mind that we're going to have, a zombie come into play and get a copy of that zombie. So all of our opponent's creatures, if they're non-zombie ones, are going to be getting -4/-4 whenever we have any zombie enter, with a copy of it too, thanks to Necroduality. But of course, we've got to talk about Gary as well. Great Merchant of Asphodel has, when it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life for execute devotion to black. You gain life, you life lost this way. Yeah, this is going to be great with Necroduality. We get Gary and a copy of Gary, and yeah, have fun draining your opponents out really quickly. Speaking of which, let's talk about Drolf's Messenger, which is pretty incredible with Necroduality. It's going to enter the battlefield tap, but when it comes into play, target opponent's going to lose 2 life. Oh yeah, and on top of that, it has Undying. So first off, we get this into play, and we drain an opponent for 2, and we're also getting a copy that drains an opponent for 2. And then with the actual Drolf's Messenger, when it dies, because it had no counters on it, we return to the battlefield under its owner's control, which is our control, with a counter on it. So it comes back into play, we're going to drain an opponent for 2. Oh yeah, and we're going to get another copy of it thanks to Necroduality to drain an opponent further. So yeah, because this creature comes back, we essentially are getting an extra copy of it for free. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of value. And speaking of a lot of value, let's talk about Prized Amalgam. Again, another zombie that can essentially bring itself back. It has, whenever a creature enters the battlefield, if it entered from your graveyard or you cast it from your graveyard, return Prized Amalgam from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped at the beginning of the next end step. Basically, free zombie from our graveyard that we then again get a copy of thanks to Necroduality. And there's a lot of zombies we can get out of our graveyard. And of course, with all these zombies in play, why not Shepherd of Rot? Shepherd of Rot has tap, each player loses 1 life for each zombie on the battlefield, and yeah, what's better than 1 Shepherd of Rot? 2 Shepherds of Rot to drain everyone out, including ourselves, very quickly. Regardless, now that we've talked about some cards that work really well with Necroduality, let's talk about some other zombie staples and kind of where this card fits. Zombie Tribal already has a lot of fantastic options with cards like, Rooftop Storm and the Sphinx of the Dead and Call to the Grave, just as an example of some just enchantments that are fantastic in Zombie Tribal decks. So yeah, I mean, Necroduality, I still think, even though there's a lot of other options of cards out there that do fantastic things for zombie tribal decks, I still think that, well, this card is incredible enough that it's gonna find a spot in a lot of zombie tribal decks out there. I mean, again, for just 4 mana, you're doubling up on all your zombies, or again, I should say non-token zombies that are coming into play from anywhere. Again, graveyard, library, I guess, if you're somehow doing that. But yeah, just keep that in mind. I mean, is this card going to be as popular as, say, Rooftop Storm for zombie tribal decks? Maybe not. Rooftop Storm is incredibly impactful, letting you basically cast your zombies for free, which actually, that's a pretty gross combination with Rooftop Storm and Necroduality in play, casting zombies for free and getting twice as many of them. But yeah, a lot of zombie tribal decks out there are going to make room for Necroduality because it's going to do so much work for you in a game. Regardless, though, let's move on now and talk about those zombie tribal commanders out there that are going to be considering this card. First up, let's talk about Wilhelt the Rot Cleaver, a brand new zombie tribal commander that is actually quite popular from the most recent set. Or should I say the most recent precons from the recent set? You know what I mean. Wilhelt has, whenever another zombie you control dies, if it didn't have Decayed, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice a zombie. If you do, draw a card. So yeah, doubling up on your zombies is going to be pretty incredible with this commander because, again, your zombies that, aren't tokens aren't going to have Decayed, and you're going to get a zombie token with Decayed for every single one of those that die. So yeah, you're not only doubling up on the actual zombie that comes into play, but you're also going to be getting an additional token when those die. Next up, how about Gisa and Geralf? Gisa and Geralf have, when they enter the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library in your graveyard, and during each of your turns, you may cast a zombie creature card from your graveyard. Again, you're just doubling up on those zombies that you're getting out of your graveyard, which is pretty fantastic. Next up, how about Verena Lich Queen? Whenever you attack with 1 or more zombies, draw that many cards, and discard that many cards, you gain that much life. Getting more zombies into play with Verena is, of course, never a bad thing. You're going to be drawing more, gaining more, discarding more. What's not to love? And especially what's not to love with Nevinral Urborg Tyrant, a zombie wizard himself, so yeah, this is going to be fun. When he enters the battlefield, you create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token for each creature that died this turn, and when he dies, you may pay 1 if you do destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. So, first off, if you've already, maybe wiped the board and, a ton of creatures have died, and then you cast Nevinral, and then you get a copy of Nevinral, you're getting that ETB twice. So you're getting basically 2 times as many zombies as the number of creatures that have died this turn. Conversely, if you actually need to wipe the board, well, you just cast Nevinral, you are getting a copy of Nevinral, and then because of the legend rule, you're going to be losing one of them, and then you can pay, 1 mana to just wipe out all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. So that's pretty fun. For you. And finally, yeah, even a zombie tribal deck built around the Scarab God could obviously utilize this card. It has at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses X life, and you scry X to the number of zombies you control. So again, doubling up the number of zombies that you're getting in play. Again, it won't double up, the actual tokens that you make with the Scarab God, but it's just going to double up, your zombies that you're getting into play naturally. Yeah, that's just going to make things go even quicker. You're going to drain your opponents quicker and scry more. Regardless, yeah, pretty much any zombie tribal commander out there is going to want to consider this card. So yeah, Necroduality is quite the bomb in zombie tribal decks. I mean, what deck doesn't want to double up on essentially all of your creatures, again, entering from anywhere? So whether you cast your zombie or bring it back from your graveyard, or again, I'm sure there's ways to get zombies out of your library into play as well. But yeah, however you're getting your zombies in play, you're doubling up on them, and again, that's doubling up on ETBs, death triggers when they die, all their crazy effects. So yeah, Necroduality I think is going to find a home in a lot of zombie tribal decks, I guess depending on the price. I am not sure exactly how expensive this mythic is going to be. Again, zombie tribal decks are quite popular, and this is a mythic, so we shall see where it ends up price-wise. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thank you again, and have a good one.